We'll be seeing whether the Suzuki Alto, the Hyundai Getz or the Perodua Kelisa will give us the best value for money. But right now it's time to see how they handle the stress and strains of the British road, starting with this, the Kelisa. Inside the Perodua Kelisa. Sounds like the name your mother-in-law should have. Anyway, it is quite airy, I have to say. I was very surprised when I got into the car to find that there's quite a bit of space around, plenty of room for elbows and everything. As far as power goes, well, it's not that impressive at all. It doesn't set the world on fire, let's say, with its engine. It's only got a 1-litre engine. In or around the city like this, when you are trying to get in and out of traffic, it is great. But when you take it out in the motorway, I can tell you, well, you will be a bit disappointed because you will have to do an awful lot of work through the gears to actually get any sort of performance out of it. It feels a bit like it should never have been brought on a motorway in the first place. That's what I found about it. Now, if you want an example of a car being very nippy around town, this is it. Oh, look at that. It's very fast off the mark. After that, though, don't try to show off too much. Kind of slow down as if you've just done the great takeoff and you're kind of being very cool about it. Perodua decided to soften the setup of the Kelisa for the UK market, and I have to say it works well, even with the small wheels. There isn't a huge amount of body roll for such a small car. It's quite a lot of fun to drive. You'll actually get out of the car, even though getting into it you'll never think it, but you will get out of the car smiling and kind of going, whew, that was a bit of fun. I could do that. I could live with that every day. Now, one thing I really like about this car, this is what you have to do in town an awful lot, turn around because you went the wrong way, and the steering just seems to go all the way right around. It can nearly turn on a penny. Reminds me of London cabs. I mean, one of the other advantages you have with driving this car is, even though it does look very like a Micra, how many people can you go up to and say, I drive a Perodua Kelisa? Because everyone's going to go, a what? I have to say, overall, I am very surprised at the Kelisa. Perodua, well, not many people know them, but I'm sure they will start finding out about them because this car is a lot of fun to drive and it is the perfect city car. The Getz is available with 3 petrol engines, 1.6, 1.3 and 1.1. Although the Getz's engine is bigger than the Kelisa's, its performance is best described as weak. With only a weedy 62 brake horsepower, the Getz struggles with any kind of incline. And that's just with me in it. And only imagine how it would struggle with 5 people and a shed-load of gear. Not a nice thought, I have to say. And because you'll be revving the engine hard to get the best out of it, you'll also encounter a fair bit of noise. The best advice I can give you is don't carry any passengers and try to drive either on the flat or downhill. Trust me, in the end, you'll be thanking me. In terms of handling, Hyundai has done a pretty good job. It's reasonably agile and the steering offers a decent amount of feedback. We head to Japan, and this, the Suzuki Alto. And the first problem I came across with this car, which is extremely annoying and it is wrecking my head, is every time I want to turn left, this happens. The wipers come on. Compared to the other 2 cars, the switches for the wipers and the indicators are on the other side, which is extremely annoying. Yes, it is something you will get used to after a while, but it's one of the first things I noticed about this little Japanese car. Now, as far as where you put your bum is concerned, the seat, I have to say, even though the seat doesn't adjust that much, it is extremely comfortable. It seems like you're sitting in exactly the right place. The amount of headroom you have, wow, I have to say, I'm very surprised. Look at that, absolutely tons of headroom. I'm 6'2", this is a small car. You wouldn't expect that much. Actually, you wouldn't even expect that much in a lot of other cars. I suppose I better start talking about one of the most important things, the performance, the mechanics of the car. I have to say, for such a small car and with a 1.1 litre engine, you would expect quite a bit of poke. But unfortunately, it doesn't. It's actually very lackluster compared to the Perodua Kelisa. The Kelisa actually feels a lot pokier, and it's only got a 1 litre engine, so I actually found that quite disappointing. I can sum it up in 2 words. Not impressed. And one last thing that I don't like about this is, even though the car's got central locking, look, there's no central locking button to open everything. You actually have to do it with the key, which I think is a complete waste of time. There's no questioning that the hard work Hyundai has put in has paid off. Okay, so the 1.1 litre engine is pretty weak, but it handles well and it's quite involving, and it's a pretty relaxed place to be. Second goes to the Kelisa. Although it has the smallest engine here, it does feel nippy and it's actually an awful lot of fun to drive. Last is the Alto. In terms of performance, it's not much different than either of the other cars, but unlike the others, it doesn't do anything well enough to stand out. No matter which way you look at it, all of our cars this week are very affordable. You could even say cheap. They all come in at under £7,000, but which one of them offers the best all-around package? Well, first up, it's the Perodua Kelisa, which comes in at just under £5,700, and it's the cheapest of our three cars here today. But don't go thinking because it's cheap, it's basic, because it's not. You get power steering, ooh, electric windows, and not alone that, you get central locking. As far as running costs go, it should return about 37 miles to the gallon, and it's insurance group 3A. The only downside to this car is, well, after 3 years, it will only be worth about 40% of its original value. So it's just as well it's cheap to buy in the first place. Next up is the Suzuki Alto, which just sneaks in at under £6,000. And like the Kelisa, it's got a good amount of standard equipment. But for that extra £300 you pay for this, you get a bigger engine, a 1.1 litre compared to the Koreans' 1 litre. Average MPG is slightly down on the Kelisa, be it by a measly 1 mile. And insurance-wise, well, this is going to cost you a bit more because it's actually in Group 5. Residuals, well, it's also going to be worth only about 40% of its value after 3 years. Last and most expensive is the Hyundai Getz, which comes in at just under £7,000. And like the Alto, it's also got a 1.1 litre engine and it's got electric windows. But although it's the most expensive of our three cars, it doesn't offer any more. Average MPG is no higher, insurance is no lower, and residuals are the same as the other two cars. So on the face of it, it looks like Hyundai, like their European counterparts, have decided that people are willing to pay that little bit more just as long as a car is manufactured by somebody that has a bit of a reputation. And fair play to them if they can get away with it. Well, that's it. All the cars have been tested and the scores are in. The only thing left for me to do now is tell you the overall result. In first place this week, it's the Getz. After years of struggling to match their European counterparts, Hyundai have finally made a car that will have the traditional European manufacturers quaking in their boots. In second place is the Alto. Thanks to a nice new face and an ability to be average in most departments, the Alto isn't a bad buy. That means that in third place this week is the Kelisa. Although it offers great value for money and is quite fun to drive, it just has too many shortcomings to be an attractive alternative to the Getz.